Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to factor binomials using GCFs, which simply means that we are going to use what we learned previously about finding GCFs of numbers and variables, and then use that to factor a binomial. Now remember, binomial means two terms. Alright, so there are three steps. First is to find the GCF, then we're going to take that GCF and divide all the terms by it, and then you put the simplified polynomial in parentheses and write the GCF in front. So that would be your final answer. So let's take a look at how that works. So if I have 9x squared plus 72x, the first thing I'm going to need to do is find the GCF. So let's find the factors rather of 9. So 1 and 9. 9 is not divisible by 2, but it is divisible by 3. 3 times 3 makes 9, so that would be all my factors. Now let's find the factors of 72. Now that's a pretty big number, so let's go ahead and kind of use our calculator for that. So obviously I know that 72 is divided by 1. That's 1 and 72. Now I'm going to try 2. 72 is divisible by 2. It's 2 and 36. Now let's try 3. 72 divided by 3 is 24. So 3 and 24. Let's try 4. 72 divided by 4 is 18. So I have 4 and 18. 72 divided by 5 is a decimal, so that's not going to work. 72 divided by 6 is 12, so 6 and 12. 72 divided by 7 is a decimal. 72 divided by 8 is 9, so 8 and 9. Those numbers are right next to each other, so I know I can stop. All right, so 9 is the smaller number, so let's take a look at what the biggest factor of 9 is that goes into 72. Well, 9 goes into 9, and it also goes into 72, so 9 is going to be my GCF. All right, so the GCF so far is 9. Now let's take a look. Do they have a letter in common? Yes, they both have an x. X to the first or x to the second? Well, you want to keep the smaller exponent, so that's going to be x to the first. So this is my GCF. It's 9x. So the next step is to take that 9x and divide both terms by it. Okay? So when I do that, I'm going to get 9 divided by 9, which is 1. They basically cancel. X squared over x. Now let's remember those exponent rules we learned all those weeks ago. This is really x to the first. So keep the base. Subtract the exponents. 2 minus 1 is 1. Put the plus sign down. 72 divided by 9 is still going to be positive. 72 divided by 9 is 8. And then I have x to the first over x to the first. 1 minus 1 is 0. They basically cancel each other out. Now the last thing you want to do is put that in parentheses and put your GCF in front. The 9x. So then my answer is going to be 9x parentheses x plus 8. And that's it. That's how you factor binomials using the GCF. Now it's important to note, you don't want the first term to be negative, so make sure to take care of it when taking out the GCF. We're going to look at that when we get to number 4. All right, so if I take a look at number 1, I have 35x plus 42. Let's start by finding all the factors of 35 and 42. 35. I have 1 and 35. 35 is not divisible by 2. It's not divisible by 3 or 4, but it is divisible by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 35 is not divisible by 8, so we have all the factors. Now let's do 42. I should have written this over a little bit. Let me rewrite this. All right, so 35 had 1 and 35 and 5 and 7. Now let's try 42. We have 1 and 42, 2 and 21. 42 is divisible by 3. It's 3 and 14. 42 divided by 4 is a decimal. 42 divided by 5 is a decimal. 42 divided by 6 is 7. So those are my last two factors. All right, so 35 is the smaller number. 35 does not go into 42, but 7 does. So 7 is going to be my GCF. I know I'm going to end up dividing by a 7, so I'm going to put that right underneath like that. Now, do they both have a letter in common? The answer is no. The 35 has an x, but the 42 does not. That means there cannot be a letter as part of my GCF. So I take out the 7, and I'm going to divide the rest by it. 35 divided by 7 is 5. The x stays the same. And 42 divided by 7 is 6, so I put a plus 6, and that would be my answer. Number 2, we have 3 terms. So we're going to have to find the GCF of all of them. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. You really don't need to find the factors of all of the numbers. You just need to find the factors of the smallest one. So that means I'm going to find all the factors of 16. So obviously 1 and 16 works. 16 is divisible by 2. It's 2 and 8. It's not divisible by 3, but it is divisible by 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So now what I want to do is start from the biggest one and see if I can divide the other 2 numbers by it. So 24 divided by 16 is not a whole number, so I know it can't be 16. 24 divided by 8 is 3, so now let's see if 40 is divisible by 8. It is. So 8 is my GCF. So I'm going to put that underneath here. Then I have to ask if there is a letter that they have in common. They all have an X, so I can keep the X. And I'm going to keep the smallest exponent, which in this case is the 1. So 8x is my GCF. Now let's divide. 40 divided by 8 is 5. X to the 5th over x to the 1st is x to the 4th. 24 divided by 8 is 3. X to the 3rd over x to the 1st is x squared. And 16 divided by 8 is 2. X to the 1st over x to the 1st cancels. And that would be my answer. Number 3. 60 is the smaller number, so let's find the factors of 60. We have 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20. I don't think 60 is divisible by 4. It is, I lied. 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10, not divisible by 7 or 8 or 9. And we already have 10. So that's all our factors. Okay. So let's see which of these numbers 100 is divisible by. So let's start with the biggest. 100 divided by 60, not a whole number. So it's not 60. 100 divided by 30, nope. 100 divided by 20, yep. So 20 is my GCF. So I know that both of these terms are going to be divided by 20. Now, do they have any letters in common? Yes, this time there are 2 letters that they have in common. So let's start with the A. Keep the smaller exponent on A, which is 8. And then B, the smaller exponent is 5, so I'm going to keep the 5. So my GCF is 20, A to the 8th, B to the 5th. Now let's divide. 100 divided by 20 is 5. A to the 8ths cancel, and B to the 5ths cancel. 60 divided by 20 is 3, so plus 3. A to the 10th over A to the 8th is A to the 2nd. B to the 8th over B to the 5th is B to the 3rd. And that's it. That would be my answer. All right, here's number 4, which is the one that we were warned about before we started. Do you see how there's a negative out in front here? We're going to want to make sure that our GCF is negative so that we can take that out so there will not be a negative in front of our parentheses. So 5 is a smaller number. Let's find the factors of 5. There are not a lot. It's just 1 and 5. All right, take your calculator. 15 divided by 5 is a whole number, so 5 is my GCF. I'm going to divide both of them by 5, but I'm going to make it negative this time because I want to get rid of that negative inside the parentheses. They also both have g's, so I'm going to keep the g, and the 2 is the smaller exponent, so I'm going to keep g squared. So negative 5g squared is my GCF. The negative 5's cancel here. G to the 3rd over g to the 2nd is g to the 1st. 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3, and the g squareds cancel, and that would be my answer. Now, it's important to note that it's okay to have the minus sign in the middle of your parentheses like this, but you don't want it to be in front of the first term in your parentheses, which is why we took the negative out in our GCF. All right, number 5. Find the factors of 8. It's 1 and 8, 2 and 4, and it's not divisible by 3. All right, 12 divided by 8, not a whole number. 12 divided by 4 is a whole number, so 4 is my GCF. Now this time they have 3 letters in common. So we're going to have 3 letters in our GCF. So start with the x's. The smaller exponent is 2, so I'm going to keep x to the second. Y to the 5th this time, because that's the smaller exponent. And then z to the 3rd. All right, that's a very long GCF. 4x squared, y to the 5th, z to the 3rd. And then a parenthesis. 12 divided by 4 is 3. The x squareds cancel. Y to the 6th over y to the 5th is just y. And the z to the 3rds cancel. 8 divided by 4 is 2. X to the 4th over x to the 2nd is x to the 2nd. The y's cancel. Z to the 7th over z to the 3rd is z to the 4th. And that's it. That would be my answer right here. All right, one more. 10, 3, and 5 are my numbers. 3 is the smallest one, and it only has 2 factors. It's 1 and 3. All right, let's see. Is 5 divisible by 3? Nope. That means that 1 has to be my GCF. Now, they all also have a g, and g to the 1st is the smallest one. So I'm going to keep that as my GCF. 1g or just g. I'm not going to write the 1, but you can if you would like to. 10 divided by 1 is still 10. G to the 3rd over g is g to the 2nd. Negative 3 divided by 1 is negative 3. G over g cancels. 5 divided by 1 is 5. G to the 2nd over g to the 1st is g. And that would be my factored answer. And that's it. So remember, find your GCF of the number, then find the GCF of the variables, divide each term by your GCF, and then write your answer in parentheses. And that's it. That's factoring binomials with a GCF.